If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new album in the description. Alright, look, so let's talk about this new Travis Scott album, Dystopia, that everybody seems to be talking about these days. Because there are, of course, a few rumors going around that Travis Scott might drop a new album very soon, within the next couple of weeks, as kind of like the build-up to Utopia, which is supposed to drop in 2022. So today I want to go over everything that we know about this Dystopia album right here. So let's jump straight into it. So the first hint that really, sparked people's interest was from an account that you might know, On Thin Ice. He predicted CLB, Donda, was also right about a lot of other stuff in the past, and this account now tweeted, Travis Scott will be dropping Dystopia before releasing Utopia. And that's when people started, looking at a couple of things differently and interpreting a couple of things different, because it seems like Travis Scott has been hinting this thing for quite some time now. So let's actually look at what he did. Also, I want to mention that this On Thin Ice account also said that Utopia, the album, and then also the tour will be happening in 2022, so after Dystopia drops. But let's look at more evidence supporting this theory that Dystopia drops. First of all, we have someone that Travis Scott has been working with for quite some time now, Mike Dean, on Instagram, posting a picture of him in the studio, and then also, referencing Travis Scott, saying, here we go again at Travis Scott. So they're in the studio right now, finishing up something, working on something. He's also, posted some stories about them in other, mixing studios and stuff like that. So obviously Mike Dean is working with Travis Scott right now to produce something which then might be Dystopia. Another thing that then, after On Thin Ice posted that, made people think that this Dystopia concept might actually be an album is from an interview that Travis gave to CR Men when he covered their issue earlier on this year. And in that interview, he talked about this Utopia versus Dystopia concept. Now, if you haven't kind of gotten it yet, Utopia is like a perfect society, a perfect world with no flaws, and Dystopia is the opposite of that, kind of anarchy and everything is just a mess. So that would also make sense conceptually, with him first, lining out and conceptualizing this dystopian world, and then in Utopia being like this grand thing, then being the opposite of it, and those two kind of poles polarizing, obviously. But let's look at what he said in the CR Men interview that he gave earlier on this year. He said, you think Utopia is a society where everything is good. Health, buildings, architecture, nah. It's just about proper lines of communication, because that's the dystopian shit we're in right now. It's all hate, 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 and all of that is drawn from what? Miscommunication, non-communication, non-understandable communication, ignorance to communication. So in here, he is again directly referencing this Utopia versus Dystopia concept that we now seem to be seeing in a new light when it comes to this new album. Because before that, it just made sense that he's saying like, yo, I'm dropping Utopia and now I'm talking about Dystopia because that's just the opposite of it. But now that we actually might be getting something, an album from him called Dystopia, this sets it in a different context, because he can now use this concept of dystopia with the miscommunication, the non-communication, and then again polarize it on the other end with the Utopia project, which will be the bigger album, just like Rodeo was to Days Before Rodeo, or Astroworld was to Birds in the Trap, because those two projects, Days Before Rodeo and Birds in the Trap, both served as projects leading up to the bigger album, Rodeo and Astroworld respectively, and I think he'll just go the same route with this one again, because that's just something that we've seen him do across his career. Another thing which to me is the most, clear and the strongest sign that this is actually happening is remember when Travis did that script for A24, that production and film company, and he posted on Instagram Instagram just a couple of weeks ago. It was like 2 months ago. And you can see on this cover, it says, you know, first draft, A24, Cactus Jack. And at the top, you can see something blacked out and then IA by Travis Scott. And back then, everybody was still hooked on the idea of us getting Utopia. So everybody assumed this was Utopia. But let's be real. Look at the letters. Look how the first word is like centered. And if you just had those 4 letters, UTOP for Utopia, it wouldn't really work with this being centered. But then the dystopia word has 6 letters, so 2 more than Utopia. And to me, kind of like just as an educated guess, that would make more sense also in like the technical writing of this. And it would also make sense for him to blur this or black this out if this was dystopia, because at that time everybody knew about Utopia. He has clearly used that word before. It's been in his Twitter and Instagram bio for the longest time now, so he wouldn't have to black that out. It's not like people are going to be like, yo, what is this? Like, of course it's going to be Utopia, because he's been using that word for such a long time. But now he's playing with people's minds. Everybody's thinking, oh, this gotta be Utopia, but then it is dystopia. And that to me makes the most sense as to why we're getting dystopia before Utopia. And now we also got, that leak confirmation from On Thin Ice, who is usually very right and is like a very trusted source when it comes to these releases. Also another really famous and trusted underground leak site, I think, what's it called? Donda's Place, I think. They also leaked that, so that's gotta mean something. The information is coming from somewhere, and usually they're right about this. And looking at all these hints, it just makes sense that Travis is dropping Dystopia before that. One date as to now concerning the release date that is floating around out there, I think this was also a rumor by On Thin Ice, is that it's dropping on November 5th, which is about 4 weeks from now. That is a Friday, so it would make sense. And also another sign as to, Dystopia now dropping is that Don Toliver just dropped Life of a Dawn, and back in 2018, Don Toliver also dropped Donnie Womack like 2 days before Astroworld dropped, because Cactus Jack was in the conversation, and Travis Scott now has features on this new album, so he has some hype going again. It would just make sense. It would just make a lot of sense for him to drop now. And as I've explained, all these hints pointing towards a release of Dystopia before Utopia just makes sense to me, and I think I'm expecting this tape. Now I need it. Now I really need it. Yeah, but that's just my opinion. Now I want to know what you think about this. Are you excited for Dystopia? Do you think this is real? What do you make of all the information that we have? Do you think this blacked out, script thing is actually Dystopia instead of Utopia? What do you expect from this new thing? Do you think we're getting it November 5th? All of that, let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media and blog down in the description. It really helps me out. Until the next one, y'all have an incredible day, and y'all take care.